Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bikinis After Babies. Thank you so much for joining us. We have another fantastic episode today with an amazing guest. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Mandy Rashawn, and I'm here with your other stunning co host.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm Gillian Hughes, and I'm really excited that you've joined us for another episode. We have a very special guest today. I've been so excited to bring her on. I would like to welcome Janine Herrera. Janine is an IFBB Bikini Pro, a mother of three girls, a board certified nurse practitioner, and online health and wellness coach with Team Alpha Aesthetics. Janine has been competing for almost 4 years and earned her IFBB Pro card in 2021 at North Americans. She is a favorite on the IFBB circuit with numerous pro wins under her belt, and she traveled all the way to Romania in 2023 to the Masters Bikini Olympia, where she took home second place. I am so excited to have her on the show today. Welcome to Bikinis After Babies, Janine Herrera.
Oh,
Welcome.
thank you for having me, Jillian
Hey.
and Mandy. Hi.
Hi, thank you
Hi.
so much for coming on today. I'm really, really excited, and several of our listeners have requested that we bring you on and pick your brain. And, I'm not alone in saying that. I'm just in awe of all that you do. And so
Mhm.
today I'm really looking forward to learning like just how you pull it off because you're so, so busy. But I would like to kind of get started just learning how you began your journey competing.
So I began my journey, I've said this many times before, post-divorce, but also right before COVID, right? Or during COVID, rather. I was an ICU nurse during COVID,
Ooh.
and it's like one thing flowed right into the other, right? Divorce ended, COVID started. And it was kind of like this angst of like, knowing that I hadn't processed the emotions yet, but now not having the ability to because I was now on the front lines of something the world had never seen.
Yeah.
And just kind of to save my own self and my own mental health, found the gym, a small gym that was open here in Miami and started working out. The owner became my coach. And at first it was just more or less workout to look the part, and I wasn't sure that I had the confidence to do it. And I think he got a little bit annoyed because it was like, you should do this, you know what I mean? And then eventually him daring me, and that led to hopping into my first show, you know? So it was a coping mechanism that turned out probably to be, honestly, and I don't say this in a cliche way, the best thing that ever happened to me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, that's
Thank you so
amazing.
much for working through that. I can't imagine. Like, I just can't imagine being in a hospital, let alone being like on the front lines in the ICU. Thank you so much for doing
Oh,
that.
my pleasure, my pleasure. Let's hope we never go through that again,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
No,
but
absolutely.
it was, I think it also brought about different things in different people, right? Because I think after that episode, it being the worst thing we've probably ever gone through, a lot of people started to understand human connection and the
Mhm.
value of it, right?
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
probably hugged people close to us a little tighter because all of a sudden we went from you could be outside, you could be sociable to now if you touch somebody, you might die. You know,
Hmm.
Mhm.
at one point it was really that scary, you know?
Yeah.
So, as bad as it was, it also uh gave a lot of people a sense of purpose, I think, and allowed a lot of people to put more value into certain things, being with their families, being with their loved ones, the value of connection as opposed to
Hmm.
just, always on social media or something. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Absolutely.
feel like it helped us put an emphasis more on our health. Like as
yes.
individuals, we started seeing how, if we live life a certain way, how much sicker we possibly could be in a situation that is so unprecedented, and we're
Yeah.
scared and we don't know how to do it, like how to handle or what's going to happen to us. And it makes us kind of think like, okay, well maybe, drinking more water could possibly help me. Even the minor things, it makes you start thinking about those.
Well, I think people also use that as a segue to dive into their own family history, right? Because
Mhm.
at that time, so many people were coming to the hospital and you would find one family member really debilitated by it, but a distant family member not. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, well, what was the difference? And people started learning about comorbidities that ran in their family that they had never even thought of before. Oh, yeah, my mom had diabetes, and now those things came into question. Now those things were
Yeah.
important pieces of information that prior everybody was just like, yeah, I think that's in my family history, or my dad had that, or now it became so important. And I think it's driven the way people handle their health in a different direction now, right? Because now you hear families saying, oh yeah, my father had this, my mother had this. Like, they actually know their family history, whereas I can
Yeah.
remember prior to COVID people coming in the hospital, and you're doing their assessment, any prior this in your history, and they're like, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
think so. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it did open up a lot of conversations, and it definitely has changed the way that we interact as human beings, the way we perceive things now and perceive our own health and how
Mm-hmm.
important that is. So out of something horrible, there have been good things to come out of it.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. I think it's interesting because there is definitely like sort of like two groups of people. There's people who it really set them back. And I hear all the time, and I'm sure you do as well as a coach, like, oh, everything was going well until the pandemic hit, and then I gained a bunch of weight, I lost my routine. And then you hear this other group of people that are like, that was like the thing. Like I decided to commit to my health and really prioritize making better choices and whatnot. And for you, it led to,
yep.
a journey to the stage. So tell me what it was like, because let me back up a little bit on that question. A lot of times people get started, in their 20s, like, oh, it looks fun. I saw this girl on Instagram and she looked great and I want to compete, right? But I think it's super challenging from a mindset perspective to begin this journey after children,
Yeah,
having a career,
absolutely.
competing in the masters categories, because it's sort of like, oh, like, should I have started by now? So what was
Right.
that like for you? And did that ever impact, did you have feelings of self-doubt getting started later?
So it's funny. Initially, for my first competition, there was none of that, right? The self-doubt was more or less, could I do this? Right?
Yeah.
I wasn't concerned about my age. I wasn't concerned about anything else, not even the other competitors. I think because I was so green, right?
Yeah.
You're so green, you're just giddy to be going through the
Mhm.
whole process. But once I went through my first competition, and I mean, I look back at my posing from my first competition. I gotta pose it. I have to post that at some point. But you realize how carefree you are, and you're just spinning up there like a little ballerina, not a care in the world. I think reality set in after my first competition. I'll
Mhm.
be honest, because prior to that, I was very green. I barely knew anything about the sport, and it wasn't until my first competition, doing well, and then the head judge Tim Gardner being so encouraging that I continue, then it was like, this man's a total stranger. But then hearing his accolades, hearing who he was, you know, like it was like, okay, so maybe if he's saying I should continue, let me do a little bit of research. And then I started realizing how young these girls in the sport are. Because prior to that, it seemed like it was a mix, right?
Yeah.
The people that I knew were my coach's wife at the time, who's in women's physique, and she's older. But then I started realizing there are a lot of masters in the sport, but bikini, not so much. So then that's when I started paying attention. And my second competition I can remember having more fear, more angst, right? Actually, if I post pictures, you'll see in a lot of my pictures or videos, I was doing this because by the time I did that second competition, I was aware that the majority of women in the sport were much younger, that there was a master's division, that, a lot of the people I'm going up against don't have kids. They don't have the schedule I have, so it's funny because when I was making those sacrifices initially and I wasn't aware of those things, it wasn't a lot of pressure, you
Yeah.
know? Happy go lucky and working towards this goal, and then all of a sudden it's like somebody comes in your ear and says, yeah, but guess what, you're starting off with kids and you're a master's and
It's
then you're like, and then the pressure sets in. So it was from about my second competition on that I started to really feel pressure per
Yeah.
se. um but that's also when I made up my mind, if I'm going to do this, I am going to go all the way. Like I'm not going to, because then it really made me realize, okay, if I'm going to commit to this, I need to do it in a structured way that I satisfy my goal and I don't take anything away from my kids and I'm still able to balance everything, you
I
know?
feel like that's the best decision we make as athletes and moms. Like when we make that decision that not only do we want to go all the way, but we have to balance and we want
Yes.
to balance how can we be the best mom and the
Yes.
best athlete and not sacrifice either one. Rather it's waking up early, prepping more food, scheduling more time, being more dedicated, being more disciplined. But in that sense, you're gonna be the best for your kid and for yourself.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, from early on, I set boundaries. I remember, once I switched coaches, one of the things that was important to me to share with my second coach was, I told her I'm not going to compete when on the weekends I have my kids, right? So
Mhm.
obviously I'm divorced and we have a split parenting plan, um, and every other weekend is when I would compete. I would absolutely not compete when I have my kids. That was like my golden rule, you
Mhm.
know. And it's funny because there's so many mothers that I've met in this sport, moms who are married and moms who are single, right? And I think there's a certain amount of strength to be said about being a mom and being able to balance this because as moms, I feel like we are hardwired to put ourselves last.
Mhm.
And I do it constantly. Even making dinner, one of the things I notice my oldest picks up on a lot now is she's like, "Why do you always make your plate last, Mom? Why do you always seek
Yes.
us
Yeah.
to eat and then you come and eat?" Or they'll be eating and I'm physically sitting with them, but I'm not eating because I'm finding out how was school and how was this. So, and
Mhm.
then it's my oldest is always like, "Why do you do that? Why do you put yourself last?" Or I'll stand in the kitchen eating while they're putting their stuff in the sink because I want to go do bedtime. So
Mhm.
it's as women, we are so hardwired to put ourselves after our spouses or significant others or our kids that for a woman to be in this sport and really like balancing it all, I mean, kudos to them.
So true. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's true. I mean,
We
and
won't even talk
sitting and
about the
posing.
guilt.
Yes. Yeah, the guilt is a big one too, but
I feel
I
like the
think
guilt is why I get up at 4 a.m. and so I don't bother anybody.
yeah.
Yeah, the guilt will drive you to do certain things where you're just like, wow, am I really, am, am I, what other thing could I be doing for them instead of me doing this for me? You know,
Hmm.
that's why I choose to go to the gym. People are like, why do you go in the middle of the day? Because kids are in school in the middle of the day and I won't feel guilty,
Hmm.
Yeah.
right? But you ask me to go in the evening and it's like, it's a sense of guilt. Unless it's like a night where I don't have them, then it's like, okay, but I try as much as possible to balance things so that it can never be said, well, mom was doing this, so she wasn't around for us to do, you know?
Yeah. I started
Right.
So,
competing when my son was 4 or 5. And that was my number, like you said, golden rule is I never wanted to sacrifice. I love cooking. So I never wanted to sacrifice cooking his food or making his meals or, taking him to school, things like that. And to this day, like I do exactly what you said. I cook his breakfast, lunch, dinner, plate everything. Same with my spouse. Like I do all of it. And like I never will let it interrupt like my personal goals, but I'll also never sacrifice from them because I enjoy
yeah,
doing that and they appreciate me doing that as well.
yeah. And I
And I
think it's a
think
matter of perspective, right?
yeah.
Remembering that these relationships, these things that you're nurturing in this side of your life have more longevity than what you're doing in this sport. So it's a driving factor, right? Because on one side, you're going to work hard because you don't have a long time in the sport. But at
Hmm.
the same time, you're going to remember that your priority is nurturing what's over here because that is your life, not just a sport, right?
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think you have to like lead with the belief in yourself that you can do it, and you just have to stay really strong because it will be hard.
Yes.
Hmm.
But I also think too, like, having and you've, now been in the sport a long time, my kids don't know anything else. Like they see me eating chicken and the food scale and like all these things, and the verbiage is, I think what I've learned is the most important is how I talk about it, because I don't want them to hear words like dieting or lose
Like,
weight or fat loss, or I
Mhm.
can't have that. Like I really just, I want it to be positive, and so that they see, they see me working hard, and they know when I'm packing up my suitcase and getting on the plane, like I'm going to go and get a trophy, and like they think it's like really cool. They just don't know anything different. So I think that's a big piece of it too, is just, I think, accepting that it's going to be hard and making those sacrifices, but juggling. And women do it all the time. I think you just have to get to that place in your head, like, okay, I'm doing enough, and not let that guilt eat away at you, for sure.
yeah, I love my middle daughter loves to tell me, look at my muscles. It's so cute because he's very much into staying active now, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because sometimes when I listen to the conversations between my two oldest, it surprises me. Like, I think the other day, my oldest said something to my middle, like, "Oh, you're like working out too much or something." And my middle daughter goes, "Because I don't want to get diabetes later on, Anya. I don't want to be a part of society that is obese." And I'm just like, getting this from, and then there's the other side of it. Like, I love, honestly, I say this all the time and I mean it. I love the camaraderie of the women in this
Mhm.
sport.
Hmm.
I think the camaraderie, I can't speak to any other division, but among the bikini women, especially the bikini masters athletes,
Yes.
we are so loving and we are so sweet and supportive and empowering of each other. And I
Mhm.
love that my girls get to see that dynamic you
Hmm.
know um I think personally it's made them a lot softer and sweeter. I've seen my daughters with their friends and they're just like, I'll share that with you, I'll help you, you could totally do that, I could totally see you doing that. And just some of the verbiage they use, I'm like, yeah, that's me talking to Ashlyn, or Ashlyn talking to me. I can hear
Yeah.
it already.
Like girls lifting each other up. Yeah,
Yeah, I love
totally.
it. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
it. And I love to see them that way because they are in team sports and stuff. So it's just like to hear them like, yeah, you could do this. Like, it's so sweet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I
I
love it. I
remember
love
my
being in this
daughter
sport. There's
had
so
like
much female empowerment.
oh, totally. 100%. I think it's interesting you said that about the verbiage. My daughter had like a just like some kids get that little injury in the back of their heel when they're growing, and it made tumbling like really difficult for her, and she had a little competition coming up, and I was like, "Okay, we're going to ice it. Like you're going to be okay. You got this." And she's like, I can do anything for 2.5 minutes. And I
Oh,
remember like, some points in my prep, like I can do anything for 12 weeks. It's fine. I only got four
yeah.
more weeks, like it's fine. So I think it's neat that they're always listening, right? Like they're picking
Yes.
up on the way we talk about, what we're doing, or our friendships and interactions. And, overall, I think like for me, this sport and this lifestyle has made me a more positive person, like a more present mother, because I'm healthier and I'm more confident when I'm taking care of myself. So I think that's, an important thing for people from the outside looking in, or like a lot of our listeners are maybe contemplating competing, and haven't, embarked on it yet, but just kind of knowing that there's so many positives, that come along with
Absolutely.
it.
There's a lot of positives in this sport that bleed into other areas of your life. Because as you go through the prep process, I think prep is such a defining time, right? Because your body's transforming, your mind has to adapt to the new images it's constantly seeing of your body as your body changes. There's that awe and awareness of like, wow, my body is actually capable of this, of these changes, of looking like this. And then there's that mental strength, right? Where you have to like buckle down mentally and know that you can do this and remind yourself why you're in it, and block out all the self-doubt or self-sabotage that might come in. Just that entire process, once you've gotten through it, you're like, I'm one bad mama jamma.
Yeah.
Like,
Right?
like
Like when
I'm
you're
gonna
back
do,
there, you're like, I did this,
I
man.
Yeah.
did this. So it's like, I think once you've had that, then you approach other things in your life differently, whether it's your
Mhm.
career or other situations that might come into your life. You're just like, if I had the mental fortitude to go
Yeah.
through that, oh baby, I could figure this out. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Oh
So,
yeah,
and I've
absolutely.
always been one of those women. Like my catchphrase is, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna get it done. You
Hmm.
know? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the characteristics that it builds in people that enter this sport. Yeah.
And you juggle not only your career as a professional athlete, but working in healthcare,
Yeah.
and then you are also a coach. So, kind of starting with healthcare, because a lot of our listeners are also in that line of work. How do you juggle those demands and the stressors with everything you have going on?
Well, I'll tell you, let me backtrack because now that I'm a nurse practitioner, I'm working with someone, we're getting an actual brick and mortar clinic set up. So of course now I get to more dictate my schedule, right?
Yeah.
Won't be able till the summer, but we're working on that. And it's a lot different. I'm now the practitioner as opposed to the nurse taking the orders. But being in healthcare throughout pretty much most of my bodybuilding career, being a nurse, I was blessed to have a group or of colleagues who, even though they may not have understood my desire to be a bodybuilder or the process, they respected and supported and encouraged my passion for it. Right. And so, what does that mean? 12-hour shifts. I would have nurses coming by my desk because they knew I ate every 3 to 4 hours, going, "Hey, Janine, you may wash your patients so you could take a break." You know what I mean? And it's
Oh,
like, because you have in ICU, you have two patients, sometimes three, depending if one's vented to or not. But, it's you constantly have to be looking over your patient. So you have to have somebody cover you if you're going to even take a break. And yes, I learned to eat food in 15 minutes flat or less than.
mhm.
You learn to speed eat as a bodybuilder. But I was blessed to have a group, like whenever I did a competition, you would hear in huddle, morning huddle, as much as I would be in the back trying to hide, somebody would have said it to our manager. And so she'd say, and guys, if you're not doing anything, Janine's in a competition this Saturday. Make sure to get the link from her to watch, or if you're going to be in Orlando
Oh,
or wherever it is. And I'm like in the background, like, because that's the funny thing is, as much as I was in the sport and participating in it, they were they always were like, "You're so strange. You never come to work and talk about it. We always have to ask you." And I'm like, "Yeah, because when I'm not a very boastful person, I'm also a very private person. So I would try to keep the world separate, but people would be like, "Hey, I saw you. I turned into the live stream." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." You know? So I
Yeah.
was fortunate in that aspect. I had colleagues who were rooting for me. They would always make sure that I had my time to go eat my meals. And so the rest of it was just up to me, prepping and staying on schedule with my meals. But it can be hard, I'm not gonna lie, because I remember at one point, I was working both night and day shift.
yeah.
And that switch from your body, and then I have to remember, okay, if it was really days, I would have this much period of fasting, so I need to do that at night. And it kind of threw my schedule off a bit. I was trying to be helpful in picking up hours because we were short after the pandemic and stuff like that. Um, but I realized early on I can't complain, right?
Yeah.
I'm choosing to extend myself like that, right? Because I know what it was like to work with teams gone during the pandemic, and it was just a bare bones team of us. And
Mhm.
so if I said yes, I'll stay and work tonight, I've signed up for that. Like, I'm not gonna take that out on anybody else. You know what I mean? And it's up to me. I would always tell myself, well, you signed up for it, so now you gotta sleep your 4 hours and still make it to the gym. you know?
I love
Um,
that mindset. Like,
yeah, it's
cause that's so true. Like we pick our hard,
yeah,
we
Yeah.
pick or we choose, like you said, you choose to sign up for that shift to help out. It's the best decision for your team, for you, you have the capability to help out. Once you get there and you're in the grind of it and doing it, like,
yeah.
why complain about something that you
Right.
chose to do? That
And don't
it's
get me
good.
wrong, there were mornings I woke up after doing like shifts like that where I worked a day, then went home a little bit, then came back and worked night shift. And I remember like I remember one time lifting my head up because I was in my bed and I go, I am never doing this again. Flip. And it was funny because it reminds me of, how some people drink and overdrink, and the first time they have a hangover, they're like, I'm never drinking again. I don't
Yeah.
drink that much. So it's like I think I had done something like 4 days like 4 days back to back, but then on the fourth day also did the night and did like 3 nights back to back. So it was like my body was just like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But Yeah, we pick our hard. That's the thing. We choose our hard, you know. There are
And when you're
certain
so,
circumstances you can't avoid, but for the most part, we choose our hard,
and
you
you're
know.
so
Yeah.
driven too, I think like you, and I think you know for yourself when I'm okay, I'm burning the candle at both
Yeah,
ends, but
absolutely.
I'm the type of person I wait till the candle's like before I like really acknowledge that. So I think that that's just something that each athlete has to really gauge kind of where they're at, and then also like temperature check on where everybody's at home. You know, like there's been certain points in different preps where I'm like, I think I really need to take something off my plate, and it's not going to be work because work's number, it supports the family, but I'm going to have to like just take a little pause from competing. It's okay. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop training, but I'm not going to be traveling to shows throughout this period of time because my family just needs me, and I'll pick back up. But I think it's just kind of taking things one day at a time when you're trying to juggle a lot, and like you said, that overarching theme of like I'll figure it out, and we're all fixers as moms, like we do just we got a problem, okay, I'll figure it out, and so same thing with prepping and juggling everything. So
And I think we have to feel okay. I think we need to like start supporting women when they say, I have too much on my plate,
mhm.
right? And I'm going to pull back from this and not shame them. Because I
Yeah.
feel like there's a sense of guilt or shame sometimes in moms who pull back or dial back or say, I'm not competing this year. There's nothing wrong with that. That woman is not a shit show. That
Yeah.
woman has her stuff together and is doing what she needs to do in her life season. And I've
Hmm.
seen so many times where people pull back because of family or they need to just take care of things in their life. And then they're looked at as if they're some sort of mess. That's not true. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
there shouldn't be a stigma between us competing and then deciding for a moment, okay, I'm going to pull back, focus on my family, focus on my business, or focus on something else. Or maybe I just don't want to compete right now, you
Right.
Right.
know? But I feel like I've seen so many times, like on social media, where somebody may have been competing and then they took a break. And then everybody's like,
Yeah. What's
what
going on? What
happened?
happened?
What
Yeah.
What
happened to
happened?
the, yeah.
You know, it's like nothing happened. She's living a best
Life. I know. Well, the sport takes so much dedication and
It does.
concentration, and your heart has to be fully in it. I've done
Yeah.
and cut off preps that my heart was not in it.
And
I wasn't giving it I didn't have my whole ass in it. It was half-assing it. And you don't get the result unless you're fully dedicated and committed. And that takes a lot of just mental strength. And it's not to say that you're weak if you're taking it off the table. Like it's totally
yeah.
okay. And also the sport's not going anywhere. And
It's,
That's the other
yeah.
thing. It's not. It's funny because I was kind of like with that with myself. I remember when Ashlyn said, "Okay, you're gonna have a long off season," and I was like, "Why? What happened? What? What are we doing right now?" And she's like, "You did like 8 or 9 competitions last year," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I feel fine." She's like, "You're taking a long off season, right?" And it's like, yeah, you're right. I can't like tell people about rest and recovery when I'm like not rested and recovering myself, you know? So it's like it's also fighting that thing in my head, right? Because it's like I'm not used to a long off season. So I'm working out and I'm doing everything. But then it's like, this kind of feels weird. Want to go back to the stage.
And I'm
You know,
sure your social media is like, where are you at, girl? Like,
I
I didn't see
know,
you
I
on
know.
that
Yeah.
Everybody's
list.
like,
Like,
when
when
are
are you
you
competing
competing?
again?
I'm like, not
When
Yeah.
you're at the
anytime soon. And
gym.
they're like, oh, you know. But I'm settling. I've settled into off season. I'm enjoying it. And like I said, you know, I have a lot on my plate with a clinic getting open soon, and so it's been nice to be like, okay, well, these other things have my attention for the while, you know,
Right. Yeah.
and I'll jump back in when it's time.
Yeah. Exactly. No, I think that's great. I think everybody has to know when it's like, and it's good for our bodies to take that
Yes.
time. And as long as you don't feel like in a rush, because I've also seen where people did put too much and they pushed way farther than they should. And then
Yep.
they end up having to take that time to do a really long health phase.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's smart either. Like, we're proof of it. I mean, I'm still going and
Yeah.
44, and
Yeah.
it's not going anywhere. And I see women all the time that are crushing it in well into their 50s. We all know that like building this physique and this muscle is like anti-aging, so
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
stay in the gym
It
and you'll be
is.
good, right?
It is. The stage
Yeah.
will always be there.
Yeah,
Always.
exactly. So tell me about juggling, adding the coaching element into it as well, because now you're taking clients and you're coaching. Do you coach
Yeah.
lifestyle and competitors
I
or just one?
do. So I started coaching with my former team last year in April.
Yeah.
It was something that, it's funny because the reason why I say this became my life purpose. So when this is to share something that probably nobody knows, when I was going through my divorce, which was probably the most life-changing event that I can say that I went through other than having each of my kids, right?
Mhm.
I had, I will be honest, a very toxic divorce, a very traumatic divorce, but I'm also a very faithful person, faith-filled person. And one of the things that I did throughout my entire divorce was I prayed every night that God would use that experience. Sorry, I'm like getting emotional,
I am too.
to help me help other women, especially single women, right? If he could give me a purpose for my life, and I wasn't asking what it should be, but I was just basically saying, if you could give purpose to my life, I would like it to be to use my life as an example for other women. And it's funny because my divorce ended, went through the pandemic. The way that I found the gym to me was very coincidental. It wasn't, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So then from the gym doing competitions and then loving it so much, loving the camaraderie of the women, the support that I felt from the women, and then realizing this is something I wanted to do, but I wanted to help other women find themselves as well. It didn't necessarily have to be in competing,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
just the way that the gym, the way that fitness, the way that taking care of your health could help you overcome so many other things. So it kind of like evolved into a passion of where I knew then that I wanted to help other women on their journeys. And then I was fortunate enough to become a coach last year, and I loved it from like day one. You know, I had always helped the nurses that I worked with, but that's different when people come to you and you help them and family and friends, to now like absolute strangers trusting me on their journey and them loving their results and everything. And now for me, I love to say that like I always wanted to be able to mix my career with something I'm passionate about, you know, so that it doesn't feel, and I certainly think that I have done that now, that I've been able to do that, you know. um I love helping women, and especially a lot of my clients happen to be moms. It just like
Mhm.
gets me like right there, you know? So that's, for me, that's my life purpose now. And being in this sport and having met so many women whose hormones are not well taken care of, or they don't understand it or the importance of it, or they
Yeah.
just think, well, I'm perimenopausal, so all this stuff is normal or should happen to me, or I'm postmenopausal, so, you know, me not having a libido, that's normal. No, we can still be thriving, uh just virile like women all the way
Mhm.
into, you know, our later years. You should still have desires, you should still have, you know, that vitality and youthful feeling. You don't have to settle for feeling a certain way. So now that I'm a practitioner, it's exciting to me to be able to like now marry two sides of this that
Mhm.
I'm, you know,
Yeah.
passionate about.
I
That's
can
so
just
cool how
imagine
it came
how
full
many people you
circle.
help. Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Like I got the like, oh my gosh, like the amount of women you help like has to be astronomical. And the fact that you came through such a dark time in your life and you utilize that, and it's like you didn't know, like your faith, you didn't know what it would take you to. And then it took you to that, and now you look at everything like that's
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful.
That's it's funny because it's like you, it's one of those things where they say sometimes when you're going through the darkness, you can't even picture the light, right? Or where
Yeah.
it's, you know, like, you know, sometimes you're going through something and you're just like, you know, Heavenly Father, like what is the purpose for this right now,
Mhm.
you know? But and I could have never imagined that out of something so dark in my life that that would be what came from it. You know what I mean? Like I said, I walked
Yeah.
into a gym coincidentally. You know what I mean? It's like I walked in, yes, with the purpose of looking a certain way, but I didn't know it would lead me down this journey to meet so many women and be in a community where I am so passionate about being encouraging and supporting and empowering while helping people take care of their health And
Mhm.
you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
just,
Yeah.
for
It's a
me,
and
cool
have you?
story
it's a
to just
dream.
It
really,
is.
It's
yeah,
a
thinking
dream.
about just how one decision, like you're one decision away from like a completely different life,
Life.
you know?
Mm.
And I tell people that all the time, like, what if you don't give up? Like, what will happen if you just keep going and you just push through this really crappy time? Because it is, it always ends up working out if you
Yeah.
really, and I think that comes with age, you know, kind of seeing on the other side of things, like everything really in the end works out the way that it's supposed to. But I do think it takes a lot of mental strength and faith to believe that that is so, because I think some people really have a hard time when they're really in the trenches of things, really sucking to believe that it's going to be okay. But I think also like women like you that share their stories and inspire, motivate other people, give women hope. And that's another huge reason why I'm so happy you're here today, because there's somebody listening who needed to hear, you know, what you just shared.
And
So
don't give
thank you.
up. It's like I just recently at Clash met a contestant who, oh my God, I love her story, Marina Ross. She started, her journey way back, and then life interrupted, right? Life
Yeah.
interrupted for many, many years for her. And so it's like now she's living the dream. Now she's achieving the goal, right? She just won the Masters 50 at Clash.
Yeah.
And to give her the medal and crown her was just, I think we were both there standing, trying not to be emotional. If you know me, I get emotional like for other people, like really quickly. But I knew she was going to win because she just has such a stage presence and such poise. So after I saw prejudging, I was like, that's it. I think she nailed it. And just to be on stage, like I kept looking at Jody so the water in my eyes would go away because I knew they were about to call her as the winner. And just, I mean, she hugged me, and this was our first time meeting too. And she just kept saying, "Oh my gosh, you're such an inspiration." And I'm thinking, you are such an inspiration to
Mhm.
me. Look how many people start this journey and life happens and they never get back to it. But
Yeah.
she pursued it, and she never lost that passion for it or sight of the goal as long as it took her, you
Yeah.
know? So man, I was just so happy to crown her. And it's just like people like her are like a dream come true. Like you're watching them live their dreams. Life can
Yeah.
interrupt you a million times. Stay the course,
Yeah.
you know?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Stay the course.
So, I did have a question to pick your coach brain. This is
Yes.
something Mandy and I were talking about this morning. But so, what do you tell your clients when they're really feeling like defeated or feeling like they want to give up or maybe like cutting corners and really not seeing their full potential? Like, how do you motivate them to understand, you know, the potential that they could reach or how to like not give up on themselves?
So whenever I kind of see a client going through something in their check-in, I'll decide to give them a call, right? It's more of a check-in response call, but it's me checking in on them, and I call it like a heart-to-heart call because it's like explain to me why you're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, right? I'm not here
Mhm.
to babysit you. We're both adults, but where's this self-sabotage coming from? Where's this unworthiness? Because you're self-sabotaging yourself from reaching your full potential. So that tells me there's something inside of you that's telling you on repeat that you're not worthy of achieving this. So let's get to the root of that, right? Because you told me you were committed. If you're committed to something, you're going to do what it takes. If you told me I'm interested, that's different. Let's talk about your interests because that's going to waver. That's going to change with emotions. You might wake up today, it's sunny, I'm interested. Tomorrow it's raining, I'm not, you know? But when you came on as an athlete or as a transformation client and you said to me, I am committed to transforming my body, I am committed to getting healthy because my uncle just passed or whoever just passed, you signed a contract with me to
Mhm.
hold you accountable, to reach your potential, right? Your not just your God-given potential, but your worth. So you tell me right now what is making you self-sabotage? What's playing on your mind that's letting you know that you're not worthy of this because I need to remind you that you are. And usually then they start opening up, right? Well, I've been binging because the kids are eating and this and that. Where's that coming from? I just don't feel like I have time. And then I wonder, why am I depriving myself? Okay, so let's talk about your self talk, right? Let's talk about when you get anxious or your fight or flight, your sympathetic nervous system is activated. Let's talk about what triggers it. And what are the things we can get back to parasympathetic mode and calming you down, right? And not indulging, not picking while you're putting their lunches together, because at the end of the day, I want you to realize that when you stand on that stage, you want to be competitive. You don't want to just stand on a stage. And you want to be competitive and have all your hard work show and not be worried about, am I placing this way because I stole a little bit of a cookie the other? Like,
Yeah.
are you going to let a little cookie determine your placing? Because that's what you're doing. And by then everybody's like, man, you put it in such a way that Janine is like, I'm just here to tell you the truth and hold you accountable. Because at the end of the day, as coaches, that's the biggest thing that we give our clients, right? Yes, we give them our time. Yes, we give them our energy. But holding that person accountable, everybody needs that little cheerleader to let them know you can do this. Not everybody has it.
And that you're worthy. I love that too, because
you're worthy.
It's sometimes hard for people to see the potential. Like we see it all the time. We see these amazing stories, like weekend after weekend, like a girl goes and does a show. She's lost 100 pounds or overcome like some fatal disease and then ends up competing. Like we see it all the time. So like we can believe it, but it's like for them to be able to see that. So I like using the word of worth. I think that's really powerful. So,
there's a process as human beings that we go through, right? Whenever most human beings, not all, whenever we go through adversity, we have the tendency to think that adversity means that we are not worth, that we've now lost some self-value, right? Yeah. Why am I going through this? Or why am I, we have a tendency to go inwards, right? Whereas like, it took me a long time. Long time. Now, whenever I'm facing adversity, the first thing I say is thank you, God. Yeah. Even if, how they say fake it to make it, I will be on the verge of tears. I will be literally in tears sometimes. But I continue to say thank you because I know that whatever I'm going through is meant to either shape me, teach me, mold me, bring me to a different place. So I just need to endure what it is. And it's hard to do that as human beings. Yeah, it's hard. We want to throw that, oh, woe is me, pity party. Now I'm not valuable. Some of my self-worth is lost. But like I said, I'm a faith-filled person. If you could just quiet your mind and just say thank you. Yeah. Just keep saying thank you because you don't know what that is meant to do to your life, how it's meant to shape you, but just trust that there's a higher reason for it, Yeah.
That's absolutely.
So yeah.
I have all the feels right now.
Right.
I can't wait for like Marina's story. You guys should have Marina on.
Yeah. I actually's on my list of people that I want to reach out to just to. Because I do think that's interesting to have stepped away and then come back. Again, it's always there for you. And, and I think just with the evolution of the Masters categories, like Sandy recently gave a statistic on a podcast. I don't have the exact numbers. I think I might have even texted you them, Janine, when we were setting this up, that it's like 60% of amateurs are Masters. And
no,
just at like 45 or something of pros are Masters. That's amazing, right?
That's listen, I'm not going to say that we are the future of the sport, but think about it. This sport is not a cheap sport by any means.
Yeah.
You do have to have your finances in order, and you will find that, the majority of the people able to turn to this, whether it's now that they're settled in their finances, settled in their career, what have you, are going to be over the age of 35 because 35 and up are Masters, Mandy.
Yeah. Hey,
welcome.
I just turned 35 March 1st, and I kid you not, my hashtag was my very first hashtag on my 31st birthday was like Masters. Like if you look at my birthday post, it's MPC Masters.
How did you claim it? But it's true. There's a lot of Masters competitors entering the sport, and a lot of the legacy competitors are soon going to be Masters, they're going to hit that 35 mark pretty soon. So I love the fact that Masters Olympia returned. That was a
Me too.
huge
Hmm.
blessing for me. Um, and I say blessing because from the minute I heard about it, it was part of my prayers every single night for it to
Yeah.
come back. I think it gives legacy to the sport, longevity to the sport.
Mhm.
You know, I have three little daughters who, yes, they know who Jen Dory is and Lorly Chapados, but how great would it be for, my redhead always says, I'm going to be the first redhead Miss Olympia. Slow down, Kimosabi. I think I've got that one. But it's like, how awesome would it be for her to be competing years from now? I mean, she's only 8 years from now. And then the people that she knew as competitors, whether it's Laura Lee or Maureen or Jen Dory or Ashlyn, are now still competing, but in Masters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Longevity of
And
the
then they may have
sport.
stepped away and had kids and come
And
back
had kids.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My oldest wants to be a judge. She swears she's gonna take Sandy's job.
Uh,
She literally heard me one day mentioning to someone that I think Sandy Williams said she's gonna retire. And ever since then, we've gone to shows and watched shows together. And she's just like, yep, when Sandy leaves the sport, I'm gonna be the judge. I'm like, there's a lot of years in between.
oh my God.
You gotta grow up some. You're 11,
She should have the
but
live stream and rank and try to match
Yeah.
it and then pull up the
Test
scorecard.
I know she wants to go to Olympia so badly. So
Uh,
maybe this year. I kind of iffy on it because she's 11, but at the same time, it's astounding because she goes to shows and she's very much into watching the men as well too.
Yeah.
That's usually
Mhm.
where I'm like, okay, let's go take a break. No, she's like, Mom, he's coming in kind of flat. And I'm like,
The lingo. She gets
the
it.
she knows the lingo. She'll be like, they should move him to center. And she's
Oh,
like,
that's
she looks at
cool.
all the shows and she's like, his lat spread is, Mom, did you see this? And I'm like, I don't even watch the men. Where are you getting this from? But it's funny because my oldest wants to be a judge, my middle wants to be a competitor, and my daughter, my youngest, the 5-year-old, is just like, is there a tiara? Is there a princess tiara? She can care less about any parts of it, Just
Oh
Yeah.
my
give
gosh,
her all the crowns and that's it.
could you imagine as they get older and then the one is the competitor and the one is the judge and be like,
Oh,
and they have to
Yeah.
do shows together? It'd be so great.
That's so neat.
that would be so interesting. It's funny the personalities they have and just how they differ, but they love the sport.
Yeah.
They think I'm like a superhero or something when they see me because it's like mommy transforms, and at home I'm like mom.
Yeah.
So
And it
It
must
is
have been
fun.
so cool to see the Olympia. I mean, and you traveled all the way across the world to get there. And so to get up there and then to place second, which is like amazing.
I
So
know.
tell me a little bit about that experience from like putting in your application to like actually getting it together to go. Because I mean, that's a far journey. It's not a cheap trip either. So what was that whole experience like?
It was amazing. So from the time I remember my old coach mentioned back in the day they used to have Masters Olympia, I put it on my prayer list. Everything goes on my prayer list. So I started praying for it to come back, and people were like, well, it's a long shot. Nothing's impossible for my God. So it came back, and funny enough, classic Janine, I prayed and prayed for it to come back, and I wasn't going to apply. I was not going to apply.
Really?
I just kept thinking, I mean, so many pros are going to apply. I'm a new pro. Why would they look at me? Like, I was just very in my head. And between my coach, Jamie D. Bernard at the time, and a friend of mine, Kaz, who's a photographer, he said, you should do it. I was like, yeah, I should do it. So many people doing it. I don't think. He's like, the worst that could happen is that they say no, right? You've been praying for this. Now you got it. And it's almost like you're like slapping God, like, well, I prayed for it, but now I don't want it. So I was like, all right, you're right. So the deadline was something like Sunday at midnight, and I hit send on my application at 10 p.m. that Sunday.
Oof.
I was like waiting. Then they gave one announcement date. Then they changed the announcement date to another announcement date. And I was just like, And I remember when they announced it, I was at Powerhouse Gym here in Miami. I think everybody thought something happened because I ran a full lap around that gym just screaming. Couldn't believe it because I was like waiting for my name. And then I remember Tarek was calling all the names. But then I'm looking and I'm like, my name's not on there. I got sad. And then he goes, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that's wellness. That's the wrong list. And I was like, phew. And then my phone started ringing before I had even seen my name. And I was like, yes. So then it became, okay, God, you answered the prayer for it to come back. You answered the prayer for me to go, right? So then my last prayer was, if I placed well, I would do X amount with the funds. And all the way through, it was just an amazing experience. I got to Romania, made friends with a women's physique competitor who I spilled water all over on my flight. And it just so happens we became friends, because it was like I spilled water all over her and thought, oh my God, I was helping her clean up. But then where was my seat? Right next to her.
Oh, man.
So on the way back, we became Evie Hearn. We became, friends. We hung out with each other. The entire experience over there was surreal because you're literally in this foreign country with people who obviously all love the sport as much as you, but that's the one thing bonding each of you, right? Because you're in foreign surroundings, let's face it. None of us knew. We would get down in the lobby and be like, did you go to the mall yesterday? Which way was it? How did you walk? Like, but it was something that kept us all like grounded and just you saw people and you're like, are you so and so? Because you see them on Instagram and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was such an amazing experience. The people of Romania were super sweet to us. They were super nice. The venue was amazing. I mean, the work that Jake Wood and Alina Popa put into it, I was always inspired to go to the Olympia, but that just fueled it even more because I was like, look at this production, for check-ins, the host Billy was like acting if it was the real show, announcing all of it. It was just from beginning to end, such an amazing experience. I loved every minute of it. I loved it.
That's really cool. That's so neat. It was great watching it. And then, of course, I knew you'd be in the mix. Like you came
Thank you.
out as a pro and just like winning your first pro show and tons of pro wins. I'm like, oh my
Thank you.
gosh. And so such a huge honor. So do you know, have they confirmed if it's coming back again? I know it's not this year for sure.
No, it's supposed to come back for 2025. Fingers crossed. I'm really, really hoping that it does. I have met so many people who are my clients, not my clients, just enthusiastic about this, enthusiastic about the sport that have been like, is it coming back in 2025? One of my things that I'm like proudest about is I remember having somebody Instagram me a message 2 years ago when I started, and he said to me, it's a gentleman, he said to me, I became inspired watching you work out. He goes, I used to work out and compete many years ago. And then because of things that happened in the sport, I kind of got sour over it, which he saw as more politics. And he goes, I stepped away from it. And he goes, but watching you on your journey has made me go back to the gym. So after Romania, he competed in the first competition in 30 years. And he
Wow.
won. He's in Canada. William, Danny's his name. He won. And he wrote
Amazing.
me and he literally said, had it not been for you and just how much you promote masters athletes and you're just so motivated to like be in the sport despite age, he's like, it really motivated me to revisit this dream. And he after 30 years competed, won his classes and his divisions, and he said to me, now that Masters Olympia is back, it kind of reinvigorates me to stay in it and go after that dream. And that's what I was trying to tell Alina. I think that the Masters Olympia last year lit a candle or a light for so many people that this is possible. How many Masters athletes, women, men, that are probably like, I want to go further. I want to compete more, but age creates a barrier. right? Because let's be real. Not everybody's gonna make it to the Olympia, even if you are young-ish looking,
Hmm.
there's
Yeah.
there's a barrier there. So this opens up a whole world of opportunity for people who had walked away from the sport or just thought, why get back into it? Because there's a ceiling. There's
Yeah.
no ceiling. Masters Olympia, literally, you saw a variation of ages there,
Yeah.
in all the divisions because it was over 40, but it was a variation of people over 40, you
Right.
know? So it was an amazing experience. I loved being a part of it. I do consider myself an ambassador for Masters athletes and
Yeah.
in the sport. And I've told Alina, I think I've told everybody, if there's anything I could ever do to help promote, encourage, empower, support Masters athletes and Masters Olympia itself,
Yeah.
they did a phenomenal job. They rolled out the red carpet for us and it showed in every way. Alina and
It's
Jake. Yeah.
phenomenal. And I
It
think that
is.
that's a huge sign. I mean, knowing how big the division is, and maybe perhaps the fact that there was a Masters Olympia did grow the Masters division. But yeah, it's something else to work towards. There
Yeah.
was back, 10 years ago, you get a pro card and over 35 or 40, and then a lot of people just would never use it. They wouldn't compete anymore. And I actually remember the very first Masters Pro Bikini competition because there was actually two girls from Kansas City that were over 35, won their pro cards at North Americans. They were twins actually. And they're like, oh yeah, we had to jump into the show because we begged for a Masters Pro Bikini show and now they finally have one. And so, it's growing of course.
It
And
is.
but everybody's also we're all going to eventually turn 40 and 50 and all those things, right? So just to create more opportunities and just tangible dreams too. Like I
Yeah.
think it's important to always dream and reach for the stars, but I think we're all realistic too, right? Like, there are a limited number of openings at the Olympia, regardless of age, right? So, but I think that if you know that there's this other opportunity that you could dream for, then it's like, okay, like that's that's something that I want to work towards. So
It
I think
makes
it's
it
amazing.
tangible again. Yeah,
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and you're a
yeah,
phenomenal ambassador for
Oh,
Masters.
thank
You're,
you.
I mean,
Thank you.
you
I'm
you
like, I
you
think I
can't.
made myself the
It's
unofficial one.
it's amazing. I mean, it really is because your mindset, your positivity, just like your Instagram, you can see it glowing. Like you're just so happy and elated, and you raise these three little girls that watch you do it. You have, your clinic. You have all of these things that are going on, and you're able to balance all of it with your positive mindset, with your clients, and it's just like you couldn't ask for a better ambassador than somebody like you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
Seriously.
you. Thanks.
I
Thanks.
mean, I
No,
think we could
I
like
love the sport.
it
And I love
shows for
Masters
sure.
athletes. You
Yeah.
know that, Jillian. I remember
Yes.
I've been a big fan of Jillian's for forever. Every time I've seen her physique, I'm blown away. And then the other day, I can't remember what show it was you did last year. You remember I reached out to you and I was
Yeah.
just, oh my gosh. It's funny because there's so many women that I've seen online that I would love to meet in person that it's funny when I meet them and they're like, you're such an inspiration to me. And I'm like, well, I was just about to say that to you, because it's like you run a business that empowers women and uplifts women and it's all coaching. Like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I love being pro masters athletes and I love being an ambassador, but it's just also just being pro women and
Hmm.
pro this sport.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't let anybody talk bad about bodybuilding, sorry.
No, me neither.
you know I just love it. It's my niche, it's my tribe, it's my community, and when you love something you protect it and you want to
Mhm.
see it grow and be positive.
Right. And
Absolutely.
welcome more people to it, to this
Yeah,
wonderful world that's done so much for all of us, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we run out of time, I do like to ask every guest this. What is like the main tip that you would give to somebody who is struggling to fit it all in with motherhood and career and competing? How do you juggle it all?
One of the biggest things you have to do, I think, whether you're married or not married in this sport, is find your tribe, find your
Mhm.
support system, right? No man is an island, right? And as much as you can be a boss babe, independent girl, strong woman, we all need a soft place to land. And whether that soft place is your partner, or whether that soft place is girlfriends who understand and can be there for you, or other family members or friends, I've been able to create balance in this sport and in my life, because despite having three girls and being a single mom and having a not a very positive co-parenting relationship and having a hectic career and all of these different things, I have a tribe of women that are around me that will set the world on fire if they need to for me. They are my soft place to land. They are my biggest supporters. They encourage me and encircle me anytime anything goes wrong, and having that security is what helps me to keep balance. You know, I know that I can pick up the phone and vent to someone. I can have somebody help me. If I need, one of my girls picked up. Having balance is more than just being a one-man show, right? You have to rely on other people in order to keep that balance going. You can keep it afloat for a very long time on your own, but there's going to come a point where you're going to need support. So I always tell people when they're coming into the sport, how's your support system? Because there's going to be a lot of tough days and tough times, and life is tough enough.
Yeah.
Right. And then we talk about other things. Support system and mindset are the two top for me. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Come into this sport with a clear mindset, not as a way to manage your weight. It's not healthy.
No.
Right. So
it's a positive
don't
mindset,
be afraid
positive
to
vibes.
Delegate and ask for help, because I think a lot of women are just so like, oh, it's quicker if I do it. Oh, I got this,
I
but
got this. I don't want to ask anybody for help. Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay to ask.
Yeah. The best way that you can care for your kids is to take care of yourself. Right. And knowing your own limits and your own boundaries, and when you need a little help or when you need to step away. So yeah.
That's very helpful.
Life's tough enough.
So I didn't ask this earlier. One last quick question is, when will we get to see you grace the stage again?
Oof, that's a loaded question. Not really. Honest answer is I don't know. I am in a very long off season. Like I said, the clinic, we're expecting to have it up by summer. So it's unlikely that I will do anything prior to then. I'm good at multitasking, but when I'm creating something like this, that it's such a passion, it's such a baby, I just want to be, completely focused and into it. So once that's up and done, then, in the meantime, anybody watching me, don't go soft, because your girl's in the gym still. Your girl's eating. I'm not slacking off. But as to which show I will come back in, I'm not sure yet.
Okay, cool. We cannot wait to see. And I'm so excited just to continue to follow your journey. And I feel so privileged to have gotten to know you better today. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing so much insight.
Yeah, it was an honor having you on.
Tell our listeners how they can connect with you.
So anybody wanting to connect with me can always drop me an email message at janine@teamalphaesthetics.com, or feel free to hop on Instagram, JA9Fit. That's JA the number 9 FIT Fit, and DM me.
Awesome. We'll include that all in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
So
thank you so much for coming on today and letting us pick your
Gillian.
brain.
It's been awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening, and until next time, bye.